Okay, so in this video, I want to talk to you about co-parenting after separation. And in particular, I want to talk about the co-parenting relationship. Because when I ask parents what they think that should be, a lot of parents actually, in my opinion, don't get it right. So I'm going to share my thoughts about this. Welcome to Wellness with John. I'm John Peters, and these are resources to help you thrive. So this video is a part of a series of videos that I'm doing about co-parenting after divorce. And if you haven't watched the previous videos, I invite you to go back and start with the first ones and then proceed through the sequence. If you want, I'll put a link up here at the top of the very first one if you want to go watch that one and then come up to this one. But in any case, in this video, I want to talk about co-parenting. And in particular, I want to talk about how to think about the co-parenting relationship. I'm going to have other videos after this one, which get into the weeds in terms of some of the particular issues that make it challenging to co-parent and some things that I think you can do to co-parent more effectively. But in this video, I want to talk about just how you frame the idea of co-parenting after separation, because I think a lot of parents I've worked with actually don't really get it right. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. And I think that there actually is a very functional, healthy way to approach co-parenting, which some people do naturally. And you may be one of those people and you're already doing it well, which is great. And this video might actually serve to help validate the stuff that you and your child's other parent are already doing. But I think there's some value in thinking about how we think about co-parenting after separation, right? So what I mean by this is that a lot of parents just go into default mode with co-parenting because you're just focused on putting out fires, you're focused on being reactive, and you're not necessarily thinking that there is this ideal thing or that it could be better and that there are ways that you can make it better. And one of the reasons for that, of course, is that, a lot of parents, when I interview them, they say, well, I'm doing what I can, but my ex is not cooperating to support this, so I can't really improve it. We can't improve it because we're not really collaborating well. And I'm going to address that too, because I think that is a big problem. But the reality is some parents do it better than others. That's a reality. And the parents who are doing it better, there are ways to actually take a look at that and say, why is that better? What do the ones who are doing it better look like? And how can we emulate that in order to try to get better ourselves, right? So the ones who are not doing it as well as they could be, what I observe is that those parents tend to just be in hostile reactive mode. So if you look at the nature of their co-parenting, it's just battle after battle, fight after fight. I'm mad at you, so I'm not going to cooperate, putting the kids in the middle, not communicating effectively about things that they actually should be communicating about, not being able to negotiate effectively about the things that they need to jointly be involved in terms of their child's needs. And so there's this hostile paradigm that is dominant in our society that basically says once you divorce or separate, then the nature of your relationship is hostile adversaries. And the co-parenting relationship is a feature of that separation. And so you co-parent in a hostile adversarial way. Okay, that's what a lot of parents do. That's not effective and it's bad for kids, right? I've said in a previous video, one of the two biggest things that actually put kids at risk of having negative outcomes after the parents separate is sustained hostility between the parents. And unfortunately, this is very common. If you look at the statistics, for example, in the United States, parents who are going through a legal divorce process, at the 5-year mark, 25% of those parents, one out of 4 sets of those parents is still litigating their divorce at the 5-year mark after they initially filed their divorce petition, right? So a lot of parents engage in a lot of sustained hostility. And that is the nature, that's the tone of their co-parenting after separation. But it doesn't need to be that way. And there are better ways to co-parent that are less hostile and more effective, and that don't put your kids in the middle, don't expose them to hostility, right? But interestingly, I used to teach this divorce class, and I taught 250 live workshops over a period of 15 years to several thousand parents. And when I was talking about co-parenting in that class, I used to just quiz parents, and I said, okay, everybody in the audience here, tell me what you think the ideal co-parenting relationship is going to be. And almost invariably, the answer that I got from people is, well, if we had the ideal co-parenting relationship, we would be friends, okay? And that is almost right, but it's still wrong, and I'll tell you why. Many parents separate and co-parent effectively and simply aren't friends with a capital F, okay? In life, we have all these categories of people, types of relationships we have with people and types of people in our life. Friend is a category, right? You have friends, I have friends, and there is, a certain reason that we call them friends, because we have a close relationship, we have an ongoing relationship, we have net positive regard. There are lots of things that go into being a friend, right? But one thing about friends is that the people we say, who are my true friends, who are my closest friends, there is a certain amount of involvement and type of involvement. And that's not always the exact amount and type of involvement that separated parents will have, even the ones who are doing it well, right? So what I think a better frame, and here's the answer, here's the so what of this video. What I think the better frame is that the ideal co-parenting relationship is a friendly relationship, but it's not necessary to be friends to have a really healthy co-parent relationship, right? So what is the difference between being friendly and being friends, right? I'll give you an example. When I taught that course that I just mentioned, I co-taught it with another instructor. And over the 15 years that I taught the course, 95% of the time, I taught it with that same instructor. We both did that same course in the same locations to the same groups of parents at the same time, right? So we worked together to deliver this 4-hour workshop a couple times a month for many years. And I would say that we worked together well because we were friendly. We were civil to each other. We were communicative. When there was something we needed to negotiate about, like, hey, I got to show up late on that one Saturday. Can you start the workshop early and then I'll join later? We were able to negotiate issues as they came up. We collaborated. I did my part. She did her part. So over the 15 years we worked together, we were very friendly, okay? So a lot of the elements of friendship were part of that relationship, that working relationship. But were we friends? No. We didn't hang out outside of the workshop. In 15 years, we never went to lunch even once. She didn't invite me to her family events. I didn't invite her to my family events. Okay, we were coworkers. We had that boundary, but we were very friendly. We were civil, communicative, collaborative. We had a net positive regard for each other, but we weren't friends. Okay, so that example is one that I want you to think about when you think about, what's the goalpost where my ex and I are aiming in terms of being the most effective, healthiest set of co-parents that we can be, okay? You don't have to set the bar so high that, we should be friends. Because if you set the bar that high and you aren't friends, then you failed, right? And you also just don't need to set the bar that high. You don't need to be friends. Now, some people separate and they are true friends. And people honestly tell me, my ex and I are actually friends, and that's great. But lots of parents are actually going to co-parent effectively and have a really good co-parenting relationship without actually being friends with a capital F, okay? As long as you are friendly, then you're in the ballpark and you're aimed in the right direction, right? So again, to be friendly means to be civil, to be collaborative, to be appropriately communicative, to have good boundaries, to be mutually focused on what you do need to be mutually focused on, but not necessarily on everything, right? So just think about that as you, over time, and obviously, you may be putting out lots of fires right now, and sitting down and contemplating what is the ideal co-parenting relationship may not take up a lot of your focus. But I want you to have this idea, right? I'm making this video because I want you to be able to conceptualize it. And I hope that you show this video to your ex too, so maybe they can get on board with being pointed in roughly the same direction as you are as well, in order for you to make some progress to lower the hostility and increase the civil collaboration between you. Another way to think about what goes into good co-parenting and what steps can we take to craft a good co-parenting relationship is to just think out into the future. And you can think about, what do we want for our child? Okay, we want our child to be healthy and happy and do well in school and develop well. We want to be able to both be at our child's wedding if they get married someday. We want to be able to be at our child's Little League games together without fighting. We want, our child to not have to worry about mom and dad fighting, or dad and dad fighting, or mom and mom fighting. We just don't want them to have to worry about that, right? So, if you think about, what do we need to be doing in order to give our kid the goodies that he or she needs in life, that starts to inform how do we need to relate to each other. Because the reality is, you can do a lot of effective co-parenting as parallel, fairly separate co-parents, but there is always going to be stuff you have to communicate about, stuff you have to collaborate around, okay? And that part of it, you have to figure out how to relate to each other so that you can do that as effectively as possible and with the least amount of hostility as possible, okay? There are going to be feelings in there. There's going to be challenges. You got history. You can't erase that. But the reality is, even the worst case, the cases that didn't look so good in the beginning, let me say it that way. A lot of those cases were able to improve how they co-parented once they thought, what do I need to be doing in order to get my kid in the best position possible? And obviously you can't control the other parent, but you certainly can control what you do on your side of the net. So when the ball comes across, you get to decide how you whack it back across, right? Some of this is in your control, and hopefully you can have some positive influence on your other parents. So hopefully this is helpful. If you like this kind of content, hit the like button below. If you have yet to subscribe to the channel, please subscribe, and stay tuned for this series, because I'm going to continue to publish focused discussions of lots of different aspects of co-parenting after divorce. So come back and join me in the next video, and I'll see you then.